that is my story. I didn't realize how many things had gone sideways in my life that actually were related to the hormones. So when that got balanced out, it was just this huge epiphany. All of a
Yes.
sudden, people around me weren't irritating me. I loved my job again. I was excited about life again. The weight was falling off. I could sleep. And all of the mental health stuff, the anxiety, the really not engaged with my own life, it all fell away.
Welcome back to the Menopause Disruptor podcast. Here I am, your host, Mary. And today we are being very disruptive, as we always are, one guest after another, an expert in their field of hormonal health, women's health. This one is no different. I'm pleased to welcome Dana Culp, a doctor of nursing practice and a certified menopause expert, as well as the founder of Thrive Midlife Medicine. Dana brings a wealth of experience from her background in critical care, clinical leadership, and family medicine, and now leads a rapidly growing telehealth platform dedicated to empowering women through the midlife transition. And in this episode, Dana shares her personal journey from navigating her own perimenopausal challenges to becoming a passionate advocate for women's health. We'll dive deep into the basics of hormonal health, estrogen, progesterone, and definitely testosterone, why nervous system regulation is so crucial, and how to advocate for yourself in a healthcare system that too often, yes, dismisses women's concerns. Dana shares practical advice on lab work, metabolic health, and the importance of building a strong foundation, covering everything from sleep and nutrition to movement and mindset. And you'll also hear about the nuanced role of hormone therapy, the impact of stress, and why having the right support team can make all the difference in your menopausal transition. Plus, we'll discuss the most overlooked symptoms, red flags to watch for, and daily habits that will support your midlife health. So get ready for an episode packed with real stories, actionable insights, and the encouragement we all need to disrupt the status quo and thrive in midlife. But before we begin, here's something you need to know about Dana. Dana Culp has over 25 years of clinical experience, and her journey to create Thrive Midlife Medicine actually began from her own experience, not having symptoms taken seriously. Her science-based and individualized approach and her ability to turn complex medical advice into practical support makes her a trusted resource for women navigating perimenopause and menopause. Whether it's persistent brain fog, weight gain, mood swings, sleep struggles, or intimacy concerns, Dana helps women across California and Nevada finally make sense of what their bodies are telling them without fear or overwhelm. Her website is thrivemidlifemed.com. You scroll down about, 2/3 the way down the page, and you will find a very handy menopause quiz. This quiz will help you learn if what you're feeling could be the early signs of perimenopause. More importantly, just taking the quiz is knowledge. Knowledge is power, and power is the difference between being told what is going on with your body and you making choices for yourself. Please join me in welcoming Dana Culp to the Menopause Disruptor podcast. Dana, very excited to have you on the show.
So happy to.
So I'm going to get right into it. We were just saying before we get into it, I want to hear about your story. What was happening in your own body and healthcare experiences that ultimately led you to create Thrive Midlife Medicine?
Okay. So for myself, my own personal journey through the hormonal chaos that is perimenopause actually led me to make this pretty big change in my life, going from critical care medicine into clinical leadership in the hospital system, and then moving into family medicine. That had been my focus, and I loved every minute of it. And till things started changing with myself. And I had no idea what was going on. I assumed life was happening to me, and this is just what happens. Life gets complicated, and how we deal with it or what comes at us. So what that looked like for me was, I have always been passionate about my career. I started being a little disgruntled here and there and not being that happy. I started having some challenges in my interpersonal relationships. I was really irritable in my head, very critical, not as engaged in my own life. I was feeling anxious. And none of those things had ever been part of my life before. But I thought, well, maybe that person deserves me to be a little irritated or those type of things. Again, I figured this is just what happens when your life gets really complicated. A lot of weight gain, a lot of physical changes that were, my health was starting to decline, my lab values were out of whack. And this is what happens when we get older, right? This is what the healthcare system tells us. And I had a little seed planted in my head. Thank goodness that maybe some of this stuff has something to do with all the hormonal shifts that happen at this stage of life. And thank goodness that seed had been planted. So then I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll go a little further upstream and see if any of this is related to hormones as opposed to life just coming at me. And when I started down that path, I felt very hopeful that some of this would be mitigated. I was met with dismissal. I was met with, you just need to manage your stress better. You just need to exercise more and eat better and those kind of things. And the more educated I got, the more I recognized, well, of course, those things are important, but that's not the answer to everything. So I became just on my own more and more educated. I ended up going to 4 different, very highly regarded providers in different specialties to get this hormonal insight into my own care. I was dismissed each time. I was given by one very prominent OBGYN a medication that actually helped a little bit, but I later learned nobody prescribes that anymore. It's due to the safety concerns for it. And if you want me to call it out, I can, but nobody prescribes that anymore. I went to
the Disruptor
OBGYN.
podcast.
Yeah. So this was a really highly regarded OBGYN because, of course, they know everything about women's health, right? That was sarcasm. By the way, I love OBGYNs, and there's many amazing ones. Then I went to a very highly regarded one from the Stanford system, who she had one size fits all, and that's what she provided. I had some additional questions and some, well, what about this? And was completely dismissed. And so, long story short, it was shocking to me as a healthcare provider and as a patient and as a woman to be so disregarded. And each one of these were women, by the way. So what ended up happening to me is I had to go in to yet a new provider armed with all of the data and all of this is what I want. Can you help me? And luckily she embraced me with open arms and started me to feeling like myself again. So that is my story. I didn't realize how many things had gone sideways in my life that actually were related to the hormones. So when that got balanced out, it was just this huge epiphany. All of a sudden, people around me weren't irritating me. I loved my job again. I was excited about life again. The weight was falling off. I could sleep. And all of the mental health stuff, the anxiety, the really not engaged with my own life, it all fell away. And for me, and I'm not saying this for other women, every single thing was, for me, related to hormones. And then so that's where my shift came of how I desperately wanted to help women not only get this education, but also to feel amazing in this stage of life. I'm in my late 50s, and I thought, this is it. It's a slow slide into irrelevance and deterioration, and I feel like this is just the beginning of everything. So my own practice, which at that time was family medicine, slowly, well, not that slowly, actually, quickly turned into a specialty practice. And I realized that, and that was my corporate job. And I realized I need to be able to help more women. there's only so many hours in the day. So that's where Thrive Midlife Medicine came in. It's a telehealth platform. So I'm able to now see women far and wide. They don't have to be in my geographic location. I'm in a couple of different states in the United States at this point, and we're expanding pretty rapidly.
Fantastic.
And yeah, so I hope that was a long rambling story, but I feel like so many women have the same experience, but without the healthcare background and without the self-advocacy to just keep pushing and get help and not be sent away dismissed.
Exactly. Yeah. Not putting up with the no for an answer, the dismissiveness, the misogynistic approach, and the gaslighting. But interesting, you were saying that this was coming even from women. And we have heard stories, even Dr. Mary Claire Haver, one of the leading experts and outspoken women in menopause health and OBGYN, has even said when she went through her schooling, this was well before her perimenopause and menopausal transition experience, there was this term called the WW. And she asked, what is that?
Yes.
Oh, when midlife women get to a certain age, they become whiny women. And so that was how the medical practice was regarding it and teaching it to her as a woman. And then one day she entered into that phase where things like you described, we can all attest to and have that experience. Things were shifting. Things weren't normal. We weren't showing up the same way, from the mood to the sleep to the waking, which is a real indication right there.
Yes.
So, and again, yourself, you are clever, intelligent, bright women who didn't have all the answers, had to figure it out on your own.
Yes.
So I want to take us back to something you said about lab work. Your lab work was all out of whack. So let's identify what kind of lab work should women be asking for? What kind of data should they be looking at when they ask to get some blood work to give an indication of what might be shifting and changing in their body so they can at least get ahead of the process and know what to prepare for?
Right. I'll speak to that from two perspectives. The first is when I was talking about myself, that I thought, I'm not doing anything different. I'm eating the same. I've always exercised and ran, and my cholesterol was going through the roof. My blood pressure was going through the roof. These were labs, just my regular yearly labs that just started slowly going wrong, and I hadn't done anything different. So that was one of my wake-up calls on my list of what is happening to me. And then I think the broader question that you're asking is about lab work for women who are starting down this road of what kind of lab work should you be getting, should you be asking for? And that's a little more nuanced, but I do have some strong opinions about that. I like to always tell my patients, hormones are not the cause for everything and they're not the cure for everything. There can be a few things going on at the same time. And lab work, while it's not the be-all, end-all, it is really important. For instance, if you're having anxiety, sleep problems, weight problems, temperature regulation problems, then you need to look at other metabolic factors, like what's happening with your thyroid and comprehensive metabolic panels. Those, to me, are baseline. You have to rule out other things first before you can go further upstream with the hormones. And then as far as hormone testing, that is also a little nuanced. Once you rule out other things and or manage, for instance, thyroid or something else, then it depends on where a woman is at in this journey. If she is still getting her monthly cycle, even if it's sporadic, lab values for the basic hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, have a little less value. It's good to have the baseline, but they have a little less value because you can't really direct the care based on the lab values since they do fluctuate so much while a woman is still having a cycle at some point. Now, postmenopausal, I have a different opinion. that, again, it doesn't have to direct the care, but it's really good to have those baseline labs. And they don't have to be complicated. There's a lot of very expensive, complicated tests out there. I'm talking about some basic tests for your basic hormones.
Okay.
And then one that is, I think, imperative, where no matter where you're at in this hormonal journey, is if testosterone is something a woman is looking into to see how that would benefit her potentially, I do feel you need baseline labs for testosterone. It's exceedingly important for women, but we also have a really tiny little narrower range for us that we need to make sure we stay in normal physiologic levels. So that is for me a non-negotiable, but the rest is a more nuanced conversation.
So let's go back. Metabolic health. So very important that the woman takes a look at her overall health, metabolic health, because as we understand, loss of muscle, which is the most metabolically active tissue in the body, that can have an effect overall health. So, and then specifically the thyroid test. So what thyroid test should be looking at in terms of like free T3, free T4? Because not all thyroid tests are the same, as I understand. So let's unpack that a little bit.
Sure. I love that question. When you go to your regular GP, family medicine, there's some basic tests that get run to rule in or out if you're going to look further, if things are going okay. And typically, especially when it comes to thyroid, an older practice is to just check the TSH. How much of this hormone is your body making? And that, in my opinion, is, and I've been doing this for decades, so I was guilty of this decades ago as well. I feel like that this is quite old school and does not give you enough information to be able to then go to the next step. In my own personal practice, I also check T3 and T4. And for folks who don't understand what these terms mean, you have what does your body make, and then but how much of these hormones can you access? So how much you have floating around is not the same as how much now can your body access. And those are also the same type of tests you would do for your hormones, your sex hormones. Just knowing how much you make, it doesn't give enough information to actually then act on it. So there are a lot more sophisticated thyroid tests that may or may not be necessary. But if you just check TSH, T3, T4, you will have enough information to know if you need additional testing or if you're doing okay. I hope that is a little simplified, but that is the way I practice, and I try not to make this overly complicated.
Before we dive back into today's episode, I want to share something really special with you. An ongoing sponsor is Hen's Den Yoga, a beautiful home studio located in the Comox Valley, owned and operated by Sarah Ham, who you may have heard on a recent podcast, educating us about the importance of mammograms and breast health. Sarah has created a welcoming, supportive space for all students to reconnect with their bodies, calm their nervous system, and build strength from the inside out through intelligent, thoughtful yoga, Pilates, bar, and HIIT classes. Book a class at hensdenyoga.ca. And if you're a values-aligned business and want your work shared with this community, you too can become a sponsor. Check out Sponsor the Show in the show notes below. So in terms of active and accessing the hormones, testosterone, all of our hormones, and the T3. So what's the indication that what is available is actually being converted to something that can be active in the body, to be useful, I guess is another term. Is that right?
That's a perfect explanation. Exactly. And both of those are really important to know what your next step is.
Okay. So if numbers are still okay, what is the indication that it's converting the way it should be?
That's where you would check T3 and T4.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, when it comes to hormones, as you said, it was very nuanced.
Yes.
So, and I've had this question before, and asking the experts always important. I hear, well, should I be getting my hormones tested? And as you said, if you're still cycling from day to day, month to month, those shifts and changes are such a variable.
Yes.
So what could a woman, and I always say, track your symptoms. If anything, your symptoms are going to be the best indication. And you can almost guarantee that by the time you hit 40, it's inevitable. You'll be somewhere in the transition.
Yes.
But if it gives the woman confidence to know those numbers, what should she be advocating for when she goes into her doctor and says, I'd like to get my hormones tested? And they're met with dismissal. Oh, you're too young for that. Oh, you don't need to take that. What could she then be saying, asking her doctor?
Okay. Again, back to education. I love this question. So, although in perimenopause, the labs, in my opinion, should not direct the care. It's just what you said, symptoms. It should be the most important thing to track. But if a patient came in and said, I'm a data person, I want these levels. My aunt said estrogen dominance, and my mom said this. And so some folks, I'm a data person, so I 100% understand. If you want your baseline labs, that's great. And it's not, I wouldn't dismiss it, because what if a couple years from now, things really change, you have that baseline, or at least some data to compare it to. So I would never dismiss a woman who said, I really would like this, even if it's not going to change our plan of care. So, and a woman can ask for that. These labs, if you have the right diagnosis codes, insurance will cover them. So, so asking for estrogen, specifically estradiol, is really helpful, because that will indicate if you do end up using an estradiol medication, to actually measure how well it's working. Progesterone, you could get a baseline. That's perfectly fine. And then testosterone, again, I think that one is a must. Your total, back to the thyroid, how much is floating around in your body, and then the free, how much can you actually access of that? So you have to have both of those for testosterone to have any ability to interpret what's happening in your body. So to speak more directly to what you said, if you want that data and you are dismissed, you are either at the wrong place, or it just needs to be, but I would like this.
Yes. And of course, we only have, certainly here in Canada, we get 10 minutes with telehealth or in the doctor's office. And you don't want to be wasting 9.5 minutes of that pleading your case.
Yes.
So, so my practice, my opinion has always been, or my belief has always been, if you can go marching in like a lawyer in the courtroom, marching in with this evidence, and be prepared to speak on it in a very efficient way, what would be some of the things that the woman could present in terms of, okay, rather than saying, I heard this, I heard that, because I think doctors might even roll their eyes to that, and be more specific, like, help me understand that these lab tests that I'm asking for will give me some peace of mind. These are my symptoms that have come up recent. I can tell you from month 1 to month 2, or maybe even month 3, that this is what has happened with my cycle. What more could she go in there armed with, opposed to just saying, Sally said this Instagram influencer said that, to make it her case more solid?
Yeah. So I'm not as familiar with the Canadian system. I know in the States, you can go to who you want to, as long as it's within your system, or within your under your insurance umbrella, or if you're just going to pay for a specialist. So the first thing is to vet who you're going to be seeing. You're not going to go see somebody who just has no knowledge about hormones and midlife women.
Yes.
So if there is an ability to Google people, research them, look at reviews. Just, you don't want to waste your time if you get there and they put their hands up and they don't know anything about hormones. So that's the first thing. If you have the ability to pick, see who you're going to see. The second thing is coming in armed with potentially a plan.
Oh, I love that.
So that is actually a big part of my practice and I'll just give you the general concept. So like I started out saying, I can't see everybody. And do we really want our ladies having yet another doctor that they have to be weighing into their care? I love the idea of having your beloved GP, your beloved family medicine person who's like the ringmaster of your health. And if you talk to a specialist, say, for instance, Thrive Midlife Medicine, I don't care if I'm the person who carries out the plan. What I want is for women to be educated, to know what their particular risks are, what the best plan directed by a specialist would be. This medication, this dose, then do this, then do that, and take the plan. Like you said, you have 10 minutes. I think anyone worth their salt would love that. That I used to, when I was in family medicine, have specialist plans presented to me that maybe were a little bit outside my comfort zone. But if I have that specialist directing the care, I usually will carry it out. Would feel comfortable. So that maybe would be the next level. And so, for instance, ladies that come to see me and they're like, I don't need another doctor, but I need a plan. Yes. I will send the note that is very specific with this is the medication, this is the timeline, this is the rationale. They will take that note that I provided to their primary. That has been hugely successful. And then I think the third thing is to come in, like you said, being pretty darn educated of what you think might be going on. And these are some baseline things I would like checked. Thyroid, A1C, complete metabolic panel, basic hormones. But I think with that approach, a woman has to be very capable of advocating for herself and not taking no for an answer. And that can be challenging. We come into situations, I think we've all experienced it, come in, our hands on our hips, we're ready, and they say something, and it is very hard to push back for a lot of women. So that's why I would recommend a little more upstream approach, if it's possible. I think it'd be a more streamlined way for women to get what they need.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that answers your question.
It actually does, and we're going to build on that. And just for clarity, A1C for our listeners.
Oh, that is the gold standard for looking at metabolic dysfunction or for diabetes. So that is typically, at least in the States, not included in your basic year labs. That's usually, they look at what was happening with your blood glucose on that particular day. Hopefully you are fasting the way you're supposed to. If it's out of range, unfortunately, I see every day providers thinking, well, it's not that far out of range, and ignoring it for yet another year, or sending the patient back for yet another blood draw and then getting the A1C. So it's a hemoglobin A1C. So it looks at what the blood sugar has been doing over the course of 3 months versus just that one particular day. So that's why it's the gold standard. And in the States, I have always included it in my basic yearly labs, and you just have to put the right code, and insurance will cover it. So there's no reason not to run it, in my opinion. Okay.
So that's another one we should be requesting from our doctor, say, I would like to have this tested.
Definitely.
And I would see common because it is one of those tests, as I understand, to diagnose any pre-diabetes, precursor for diabetes, type 2 diabetes, which of course is a major health concern in North America. So it would be
Absolutely.
obviously something that would keep our eyes open. Why should women, particularly in the midlife with the weight gain, increased inflammation and rising cortisol, which are common when the hormones are dysfunctioning, fluctuating with the change in estrogen and progesterone levels, as well as their testosterone levels. Why should then women start paying attention that this weight gain, although common, is not healthy? And start taking this quite seriously for the next phase of her life, which is pretty much postmenopausal and all those years beyond.
Absolutely. I think as a culture, we look at this from an aesthetic perspective. Weight gain, my clothes don't fit, I don't look the same. And again, we focus on the number on the scale, and it is more about aesthetics as a culture.
Yes.
The reason, though, that is not the right way to look at it, in my opinion, is just what you said. So excess adipose tissue, especially for women in midlife, where it starts to accumulate in the midsection, that's really common, and there's an actual biological reason why that happens. It's directly linked to our dropping estrogen levels, but it is hugely inflammatory. It can impact our cardiovascular system. It can impact cancer and heart disease, and there's a lot of connection with mental health, dementia and Alzheimer's, that extra adipose tissue. And then it also can really affect psychologically as well. There is a actual chemistry component, but there's also women who don't feel good. They can't breathe as well because they're carrying around this extra weight. They might not engage in the activities that they did before because they just can't. Or now my knees hurt. Or whatever joint, hips and ankles and things like that. So it is not just aesthetics. It is really, really important to stay as close to our ideal weight as possible for so many reasons. And to go back to the hormones, when we get that piece right, assuming we don't have all of these other metabolic changes that don't need to be worked on, our body won't fight so hard against us to hold on and continue to accumulate more and more fat, adipose tissue.
Yes.
It will go, okay, I don't need to hold on to this anymore, because for women, that is part of what's happening. And I'm not saying hormone replacement therapy specifically is a weight loss drug, but it will have your body stop fighting against you so hard.
And so you indicate yourself, once you started recognizing, you got yourself educated and realized the role that hormones were playing in your health, both for you and against you, is that suddenly that weight gain that you experienced was a non-issue. You started losing the weight.
Yes.
Was that because you went specifically on a hormone therapy, or was it a number of things? And I want to get into this about nervous system regulation, and cortisol.
Yes. I think that it's this feedback loop. So I'll speak about myself, but I do think that most women will resonate with this. So for myself, I was gaining a lot of weight. I couldn't sleep. So in the morning, you don't want to do any of the physical activities because you don't feel good. You definitely make different food choices when you're sleep deprived. And so it goes. So for myself, once I was able to sleep again, and that happened very quickly because my sleep was really, really tortured for a long time. So once I could sleep again, I woke up. I'm rested. I'll go for that walk. I'll go for that hike. And you make the different food choices. And so the hormones don't make you lose weight, but they make you feel like yourself again, and you're engaged in your life again.
I love that.
And so that part happened a little slower. You start feeling good again and doing the things you love again, and then it just and making better choices. And not to blame women, but that is something that happens when you're sleep deprived. We reach for sweets and things to give us energy. So once that baseline was corrected, and I see this in my women patients every single day, the weight does start to just fall off. And if it doesn't, because that's not the fix for everything and it's not the blame for everything, and I know you didn't ask about this, but weight loss medications can have a really synergistic effect for women in this stage, because the weight is not just aesthetic. It is very important to get as close to how you used to be, or maybe even better. And sometimes, and specifically these GLP-1s really play a big role for women in midlife to help them get back to where they were.
Yes, I've had a couple of guests already on the show to talk about GLP-1 agonists and its role in helping with the weight management. Because of the fact, like you said, the metabolic risk, the cardiovascular metabolic risk that a woman is now exposed to with her new hormone profile in her body as she hits midlife. And because of the fact that what's the terminology? IDFLM, I don't feel like myself syndrome impacts our motivation.
That just hurt my heart. I hear that every day.
Yeah, like the motivation to even be active in any sense of the word, whether it's to walk or picking up weights, the brain fog and fatigue, which, like you said, we reach for the carb rich foods because the brain is saying, glucose, glucose, glucose. I need fuel. Give me something. I've got to perform today. I got to go to the office, but I haven't slept. And so give me something as a quick fix to get through it. And it's like you said, it's just this vicious cycle until we can at least break it with one fork in the road being, okay, some hormones, but then it's a multi-pronged approach.
Absolutely.
Then you bring in some exercise. You'll look at your nutrition. Weight starts to become a little bit more managed, starts normalizing, and then sleep improves. But what about stress? Because we're still constantly triggered, stressed, and we never close that loop or actively take steps to close that loop. How does the nervous system regulation play in this whole multi-pronged approach to midlife management, symptom management?
Yes, I love this. This is huge. I love that you're really highlighting this. So what I hear from my patients every day is, I used to be able to manage all this, my family, my career, fill in the blank. And I can't seem to do it anymore. I can't seem to juggle all those balls anymore. I can't seem to manage it. So I keep going back to the baseline foundation. A lot of that is because of estrogen dropping. And if a woman wants to just trial to see if that can help her juggle those balls again, that there you've got the baseline. I don't think the hormones necessarily fix everything, but they fix the foundational parts that are not working for us anymore, so we can get back online and manage all of those things we managed before. So I keep going back to the foundational piece. You're still going to have stress. You're still going to have, especially in this age, you might have still kids under your roof. You might be caring for aging parents. You might be, your career might be getting really, really challenging. But if you are fighting with both, if you're not fighting with your arms tied behind your back, then you can hopefully tackle your life again. And once you do have those foundational pieces handled, if there are things that need to change, that it is too stressful, then at least you can assess it properly.
Right.
But you have to have your basics handled. And that's where I think hormone balancing is just essential to this conversation.
I love that. And I think of an analogy, and I'm going to get it wrong, but so I made it up my own in my own head. So when you're improving you're fireproofing your home, you're putting up better insulation, fireproofing insulation, firewall protection in your home, but suddenly a fire lights up in your home. You're not going to go, oh, but if we continue to put up the better firewall and the better insulation, we can address these issues. No, you're going to stop, down tools, and put out the damn fire. Because that's emergency number one. And it appears to me is like, okay, let's triage this with what's the most urgent situation or urgent level of care required, and then go back to the foundational pieces.
Yes.
To improve the overall structure so that it's more fortified and strong for many years to come.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that was a good analogy.
It is such a good analogy. I think household analogies are always just brilliant. It's the foundation. You still have to put out the fire, but you have to make sure your foundation is good. And so I love that.
And then you can feel like, okay, I'm in better control because we've addressed some of the urgent issues immediately. I really believe this for women. When we feel a sense of control, even though we don't have all the answers, but we feel that we're back in the driver's seat, that in itself helps our nervous system.
Yes.
It helps regulate that fight flight almost to okay, I've got this. I've got some tools in the toolbox. I'm trialing. I like this. I'm trialing. I'm experimenting. I'm opening myself up to experimentation to see if a little dose of estrogen will work or a little dose of testosterone will work. Mm-hmm. Of course, in Canada, United States, it's not easy to get testosterone, but we can work with compound pharmacies that in Canada, Health Canada still doesn't prescribe as it would estrogen and progesterone therapy. But nevertheless, it's still there. And
yes,
science is marching on. And I'm hoping one day that we will arrive at a point where we can have now commercial doses that are appropriate for a woman's body for testosterone. We're getting there. But back to just being able to test and trial and know that these are just some of that triage approach. And then we get into the other factors. So looking at all those other tools in the toolbox, when you have women come to Thrive Midlife Medicine, what else are you prescribing in terms of lifestyle that can help her on her journey so that she can optimize all the tools in the toolbox?
Okay. The big picture is so important. The hormones are not the only issue, but I do take a backwards approach to this. I have had many colleagues who say, go on a diet, get your exercise and your stress managed, see what you're left with, and then come back to me and we'll talk about hormones. I do not subscribe to that approach. I think it's completely backwards.
Yeah.
Because if you don't feel good and you can't sleep and you can't think straight and your brain is not looking at stress the same way again, then you're again fighting with your arms tied behind your back. So the foundational pieces I think are very important to have in place first. And then absolutely, you have to take care of your body. You need to eat healthy food. I do know that there's a lot of complicated messages out there right now, and I don't want to make this complicated. As much as I love those messages, I think they're like the next step. Again, I'm back to the basics. So eating the appropriate calories for your activity level, prioritizing protein, which is so important at this stage of life because we do need to really protect our muscles. And so exercising, I prescribe all of these things, eating correctly with protein at the highest priority, getting daily movement in. Would I love every woman to be at the gym pumping iron and lifting heavy, which is the big catchphrase these days? Absolutely. But for some women, they just need to start moving. And so movement every day that they enjoy and that they will do. once they feel great, they're going to get there to these higher levels. But back to the basics. As far as food goes, I love to keep it really simple. I do have some wonderful nutritionists and dietitians that I will refer my patients to when they're ready for that. But again, I'm not trying to make their lives so complicated. But focusing on whole foods as close to their natural state as possible. So proteins, whether they're from plants or from animals, fruits and vegetables, and limiting processed carbohydrates. That is my basic prescription. Having sweets and other things only as a treat, and moving every day, getting some sunlight, really building your connections with friends and family. I think that is really underappreciated because we're all so busy, and I think that is imperative to our health and our mental health. And protecting your sleep like it's your job.
Yes.
Those are the foundational pieces I speak about with all of my patients. And then some of them are a little bit farther advanced. So then maybe now we'll talk about what role alcohol might have in their life, or taking their exercise regimen up to the next level. But that's just when they're ready for it. We have to make sure our house is insulated, like you said, and we have our foundation built, and then beautiful things will blossom from that. But without the foundation, you can't expect much to happen. And you'll work really, really, really hard without all of the foundational pieces in place.
Yeah. I had a couple of previous guests summarize it nicely. It's not about taking away this and eliminating that and removing this, because that is almost like negative reinforcement. It's bad,
Yes.
Get rid of it. It's bad, get rid of it. It's what can you add in that's going to bring you benefit? And then take note. How did that make you feel? How does it change? Oh, a 10-minute walk to, add another 5 minutes. Oh, add another gram of protein, or, another serving of vegetables over a course of time, so that these tiny little shifts add up over a significant period of time. And almost psychologically, we start making those choices because we feel in control. Say, I am feeling good. Maybe I can do away with this. Maybe I don't have to have that chocolate bar 3 times a week. Maybe I'll just save it for a nice little sweet treat in a blue moon, but not that deprivation such that we feel like this is going to be a grind. And that's just negative reinforcement. And in my opinion, it just drives up the nervous system all over. It's like, deprivation, panic, fight, flight, freeze, where we're just allowing our bodies to be that experiment and enter this new era with an open heart, an open mind.
Absolutely. I have subscribed to that philosophy for a very long time, that as soon as you tell a patient or anybody what they shouldn't be doing and what they can't have anymore, this is just the way our brains work. That's what we focus on. And it's about scarcity and deprivation, and I can't do this, and all or nothing, or never, or black and white. But if you frame it the way you just did, our nature is not what I can't have. It's put all of these good things in place and then see what room you have left. And it's really easy to do that, have that conversation with food. If this is what you are adding into your diet, all these beautiful colors and beautiful flavors, and you aren't really going to have enough room for all of the things that are not benefiting us. So I always approach it from that perspective, and I find that it's a lot more successful. And then folks are focusing on the abundance and the positiveness as opposed to all the things they can't have, which then leads to self-blame. Oh, maybe I did this to myself with those extra candy bars or whatever. So yeah, the small approaches, but looking at it from a perspective of abundance. This is what I can have, and then I don't really have room for the rest of the stuff that's not benefiting me.
Bringing it back full circle now to something that you said earlier on is when you have that coach, that person who helps you, that specialist or whatever role they have, make it that plan and carry you through that plan, saying these are all the little pieces to put in there. If it requires a little going to see a specialist in healthcare that focuses on this, add a little bit of that. How important is it for you that a woman does work with somebody who can hold her hand through that journey?
I think that it is essential. It is complicated. We are complicated, and it really requires a couple of things. One, I think and we all have had this experience, somebody that really resonates with us, that we really trust, that we count on, that we just feel like they're on our side and they're on our team. And I think that can go back to the beloved family practice provider, and why I really support cultivating that relationship, assuming that is the relationship. That's not always the case. And why I think that fragmenting the care with all these different specialties isn't always the best choice, but getting those specialist perspectives and consultations to then bring back to your team really, really helps a lot of women. Mm-hmm. But we can't expect everything from one provider. I don't care how amazing they are. We say this in medicine all the time, that we can't know everything about everything. So yeah. I love that there's so many wonderful resources now. Your audience is just gifted with all of these different specialists that you talk to and that share their information. And then take that back to your trusted team leader. I do think it's really important, but I do think, though, that in medicine, we're very siloed. So if somebody is fortunate enough and has the time and the resources to have all of these different specialists, they don't necessarily agree with each other. And so the woman is left to be the ringleader, the ringmaster of all of this. So whenever I can support their just beloved primary care provider, that is definitely on my list of one of my goals. And then where do you start with that, right?
Yes.
So I think that perimenopause is a lot more confusing than just when a woman is fully in menopause. We all, I think, recognize that delineation, like, oh, okay, I know what this is now, or at least what's part of it. But when you're in perimenopause, it's like, well, what is happening to me? Is this really perimenopause, or is this something else? So at my website, I do have a perimenopause quiz that is super, it's really informative. So depending on how the questions are answered, it will tell you what your next steps are, where you're at probably in the journey. So a lot of women find that really valuable. So thrivemidlifemed.com. And then you can just go to the website, and it's very prominent on there, the perimenopause quiz, or you could type in perimenopause-quiz. And that's a great place to at least start, to know if this is what is really happening.
We'll get that in the show notes and share that for sure.
Oh, wonderful.
You're right. Again, it goes back to knowledge is power, just to know.
Absolutely.
Oh, but as you said earlier, still got to go and check those underlying issues if there's something at the metabolic level that definitely needs addressing. How dangerous is it, though, when we hear doctors say, oh, honey, you're too young to worry about hormone therapy. You're too young to be in perimenopause, because we know that new research and science is telling us that it can happen as early as mid-30s. How dangerous is this now in our health?
Doesn't that sound so young? That sounds so young. But if the window where 80% of women will go into actual menopause, which is 12 months without a menstrual cycle, is between the ages of 45 and 55. That's 80% of women. Some a little bit later, some a little bit earlier, but that's the vast majority. And then we know from research that 8 to 10 years before a woman's final period, it can be perimenopausal, and it can be really dramatic and really awful, or it can be a little more subtle. So doing the math backwards, you're right, mid-30s. And I have several patients who are in their early 30s. So to have that be dismissed has been such a disservice to women. It goes back to lack of understanding, lack of education, on the
Yeah.
provider's point. But yeah, being dismissed and not even looking under the hood to see. And that's where a perimenopause quiz, so women can come in and maybe not be brushed off as easily because they're like, no, I'm pretty sure this might have a component to this. And you're right, there's been some incredible studies that are getting a lot of attention that if women do address this hormonal chaos earlier, improvements in mental health, in cardiovascular health, in so many things can be improved upon the long-term health. This isn't just about symptom management. This is about our health span and our long-term health.
So true.
So it's very dangerous for women to be dismissed. And I love that women like you are advocating for women and sharing this really important message.
It absolutely is. This has been really valuable information. Before we close,
yes,
we're doing those rapid fire questions.
Oh no,
get some more fun but insightful answers from the experts in the field of menopause who just love disrupting the status quo.
Yes.
Okay. They're fun. First question. One symptom women normalize, but they shouldn't.
Oh, gosh, I have several. But I would say pain. Pain without an etiology, that is something a lot of us dismiss. It can be a sign of estrogen changes. We have estrogen receptors all over our bones. And so that is probably one that people don't think of, is how much body pain that they have, joint pain, muscle pain. Fibromyalgia is a really common diagnosis in this age group. And fibromyalgia is a diagnosis of exclusion when there is no identifiable etiology, and that's where fibromyalgia comes in. You have pain, but we don't know why. Dr. Vonda Wright talks a lot about this. She's an orthopedic surgeon, that it could be estrogen receptors.
If midlife care were truly done right, what would be different for women?
It would become a screening tool in your regular yearly check-ins, and it would be on the differential. We screen for depression. We screen for substance use. We screen for so many things. And I think for women, there should be screening for hormonal changes, symptom changes that could be related to perimenopause. Just standard practice. I would love to see that.
One red flag phrase that women hear often from doctors that absolutely needs to disappear.
Oh, gosh. Red flag phrase. That's not what's happening. I hear that all the time. Instead of tell me more, or can you elaborate, to be dismissed. Oh, that's not what's happening. And I would love to see that just X'd right out. I would like more engagement with patients, that if you don't understand what they're saying, get them to tell you more until you understand.
Yeah. I think we've probably talked about this one, but we'll keep it nice and sweet on the heels of this on the last question. One thing you wish every primary care provider knew about menopause.
It is going to happen to every single solitary woman, and that it will impact most of them. And so adding hormonal changes, hormonal chaos to the differential whenever they come in with anything, to have that just in the back of the mind. I would love to have that be part of every single encounter for a woman who's maybe 35-ish on up, and then there's no limit.
And let's leave on a positive note. One daily habit that supports midlife health more than people realize.
Ooh, sleep.
Yes.
Sleep.
Yeah.
That is just the key to so many things, in my opinion. And it always is the thing that we can just push away if we're too busy. And no, we can't.
It's a non-negotiable.
Yeah. Non-negotiable, in my opinion.
Absolutely. This has been a great conversation, just full of so much knowledge. I can't wait to share it with listeners. Dana, thank you for your time, your expertise, your energy, your insightfulness, and sharing your story. It's real, and we can relate to that. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I love your show, and I love what you're doing for women.
Yes, we've got to keep disrupting the status quo, changing the narrative, and coming together in community. Women do better together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Today's conversation with Dana Culp reminds us that midlife symptoms are not random, imagined, or something women simply have to endure. They are signals, and when we understand the hormonal, neurological, and biological shifts in perimenopause, those signals begin to make sense. Here are my biggest takeaways from today's episode. Number 1, women, take agency over your health and advocate. Go into that doctor's office and request you get the help that you want. Lab tests, hormone therapy. Don't let a doctor tell you you're too young or that's not necessary. Pretty soon, our voices are going to get so loud and the pushback will be so strong, doctors will be running for the hills or running to get some more menopause education because that's where it is needed most. But until that time, unfortunately, many of us still have to navigate through outdated models in women's healthcare. But this is leaving too many women to bounce around between providers, still feeling dismissed and confused. Second biggest takeaway then for me, and Dana reminded us of this, modern menopause care must be individualized, science-backed, and rooted in listening, not protocols built on fear or that one size fits all. Number 3, weight gain after 40. It is not failure of willpower. It is not your inability to properly manage your diet and your exercise. No, in fact, it is a very complex interaction between hormones, muscle loss, which happens rapidly after age 40, definitely stress and sleep. Sleep being the panacea. I've said it before. I'll say it again. These are all part of the hormonal shifts that deserve real support. Which brings me right to my last point. Women deserve to be heard in order to feel supported. When women are properly educated about their bodies, equipped with the right language, and supported by informed providers, midlife becomes a period of clarity and of strength, not confusion, decline, or shame. So if this episode resonated with you, let's take it to the next step. Start with awareness. Notice what your body has been trying to tell you, without judgment or without blame. Just get curious. Then get educated. Seek evidence-based information about perimenopause and menopause so that you can make informed decisions, not fear-based ones. And next, advocate for yourself. You are allowed to ask questions, request options, and expect care that treats you as a whole person and not just another number, another 10-minute appointment in and out the door. So if you are in the California and Nevada area and you're looking for personalized menopause-informed medical care, be sure to explore Dana Culp's work at Thrive Midlife Medicine. Her website is thrivemidlifemed.com. And if you'd like to take a deep dive into the science of symptoms like brain fog and sleep issues for women who just don't feel like themselves, I encourage you to check out Dana Culp's free live event on February 14th called It's Not You, It's Menopause. You can find all the details and register at thrivemidlifemed.com/event. I'll have that link in the show description below. Anyone who registers, a replay will be available for anyone who can't make it. This resource remains evergreen. It's for you to have at any time. You can always go back to it. Dana Culp's free gift to you. Go check it out. Would love to have you join in. Take your learning journey one step further and feel completely empowered, prepared, educated, and informed to have a conversation with your doctor. Sign up for my Menopause Intelligence course, MQ. You can find that on my website at mlcoaching.com. It's an 8-module, self-paced online digital course. That's Midlife Intelligence MQ. You can find more on mlcoaching.com. And if you're not ready to dive into the Menopause Intelligence course right away, I'm offering you my freebie. It's the 7-day belly fat reset plan. I unpack all the resources that you need to start addressing belly fat from what is happening to your hormones, how to incorporate strength training and sprint interval training into your daily regime, as well as some nutrition choices loaded with protein options that can help you get off the roller coaster of sugary carbs and onto some really good amino acids to fuel muscle, most metabolically active tissue in the body. The link is in the episode description below. Go check it out. The Midlife 7-Day Belly Fat Reset Program. If today's insights resonated with you, I'd love for you to be a part of our growing community of menopause disruptors. Hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening right now. And if you know someone who can benefit from these conversations, please share this episode. Sometimes a simple act of sharing can be the first step in someone's healing journey. And hey, if you're ready to take the next step in your menopause journey, I'm here to support you. You can find all my services, including my comprehensive menopause intelligence digital course, one-on-one coaching programs, and workplace education services at mlcoaching.com. It's in the show notes. Want to stay connected and get regular doses of menopause wisdom? Follow me on Instagram at Menopause Disruptor Podcast, where I share tips, insights, and real conversations about navigating this transformative phase of life. Let's continue to disrupt this menopause conversation together. Remember, midlife should be the best life, and it will be. Namaste.